So welcome to another Urban Tango Nights Talks. Today I'm delighted to be joined by Graham Guy of Tangosynthesis and Jivebeat Radio. So welcome, Graham.
Hello, hello. How are you?
I'm very good. How are you?
Yeah, it's all good. Yeah, strange world, but it's all interesting. And I'll tell you something, maybe old, but it's making people connect a little bit more than they were before. You know, we wouldn't have been doing this if there hadn't been this chaos this year. So, you know, I think this is good opportunities.
Yeah, well, you're based in Kent, or Kent, South
very,
London.
Very West Kent. I mean, I'm in the London borough of Bromley and in Kent, and if I chuck a rock out of the window, then it lands in Surrey. So that'll give you some clue.
Yeah. So yeah, as I say, as you said, if we were going to be doing this at any other sort of point in history, it would have been probably myself and Alison would have been somewhere close to Surrey or Kent to have done this. So yeah, there are opportunities.
Yeah, exactly.
So I think the place where we're going to start, because this relates to other videos, is Neotango, because on your sort of advertisement and the way you introduce yourself is 95% Neotango and as a Neotango DJ, and then 5% traditional. So then the first question is going to be the taxing one. How do you define Neotango and traditional tango?
What is Neotango and what is traditional tango? Well, weirdly, I kind of did a dry run on this sort of by accident last night. We'll come back to what that's all about later on. But for me, Neotango is focusing on the dance of tango rather than the package that comes with it. So if you think about going to a traditional venue, there's a certain culture, if you like, there's a certain atmosphere, there is a certain way of doing things. You know that the music will be played in tandas, you know they will be played in yet to understand that there will be, you know, this orchestra and then this orchestra and this is the way it will look and how it has been and this all of that is great and it's brilliant fun if you like that kind of thing, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with it whatsoever. But if you look at any other dance style, don't do that. Salsa club, you don't get culture. You go to salsa club to dance salsa. If you go to a modern jive club, there's no between any of them. The only thing that's the same is the focus on. Is that so for us? Neotango is taking the package, breaking it down, and just looking at the dance bit. So it means that you then go to do kind of whatever you like with it. You can dance to more modern music. You're not constrained, if that's the right word, to particular orchestras, particular period of time. There is no golden age of tango for us. It's all music is open to be danced to. We danced to big band music from the 20s and 30s, so probably predating the golden age of tango. And we've danced to the most modern tracks that came out last week. And it's that scope, it's that disconnection of the dance from the package. As I say, there's nothing wrong with the package. The package is really cool. If you want the package, great. But we want to focus on the dance. So that's our definition, if you like.
Yeah, so it's one of those things that I've always been interested in is how people define that. So I interviewed Basil Amanda, I'm not sure if it made it into the interview, but when they talk about traditional tango, they say that everybody's view of traditional tango is different. So you go to what people would say is traditional tango club in Bristol, and what their view of it is totally different to, say, somebody up in Newcastle. And I think
yeah, absolutely.
And the same with Neotango. So things like Wayne Rosier, who doesn't count himself as Neo-Tango, but more of alternative, but his way of looking at it is whether in the sort of alternative Neo-Tango world, you do things by agreement, while in the traditional tango world, it's more like you've signed a contract, you will dance with this person for 3 dances, you then will split you.
That's actually an interesting way of putting it. Yeah, I see where you're going, yeah.
And then you've got people like Lorenzo of Creative Neo-Tango Nottingham, or whatever they're changing their name to at the moment.
It might be disconnected, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's changed recently. Their view was that it's more of a way of looking at how the mechanics of tango has been done, and then exploring all possibilities to it, to all forms of music.
Yeah,
So,
see, so that the technical side of tango, to me, falls under that sort of nuevo approach kind of bit, because there was tango. I mean, I'm literally writing a book about this at the moment, so I've done quite a lot of looking into this. I don't profess to be any kind of authority on it, but I have done an awful lot of reading and a lot of tunneling, and there was kind of the traditional way of doing it, and then there was this sort of big gap because tango was. It was never illegal, but it was practically impossible in Argentina for ages because of the limitations on public gathering. And then kind of when it restarted, everybody tried doing things in a different way for obvious and logical reasons. People kept calling that Nuevo Tango, but then they also called the music that was being developed at that time Nuevo Tango. And then other people started saying, well, they're teaching it in a Nuevo Tango kind of way. So nobody knew what Nuevo Tango meant any more than nobody knows what Neotango means now. So you ended up with this sort of three branches. Then Gustavo Navira comes along and says, none of that's right. Nuevo Tango just defines everything that's happened in tango since the 1970s, and it's just the way forward. And I think that was where the Neotango term came from. It's just that because so many people were confused as to what Nuevo meant. Was it a teaching style? Was it a type of music? Was it a different type of dance? That everybody stepped away from that and said, let's lose the Spanish new and go for, oh, you'll know, is it Greek or Latin?
that was Greek, I think.
It's Greek, yeah, there we go. Yeah, so we go for the Greek version of new. So Neotango is just new tango, and it's just everything that's happened since the 1970s, but without all the confusion about whether it relates to music or teaching or whatever.
Yeah, again, that's one of the things I find out. The fact you can't really, we can have new tango, but it all has to encompass all tango that's happened before. It is all builds up to it, so it's really odd. And then I'm finding that more like we class ourselves as just dancers mainly, whether because myself and Alison dance multiple dances, or we do the modern jive, we've done the ballroom thing in the past. We can do a bit of salsa, not great at it, but so we count ourselves as dancers. And then like our main one, because of what we do with the club and what we've sort of ended up going into, is mainly tango. But again, we try not to. We used to probably define ourselves as sort of nuevo, sort of neo-ish, but now as we've started getting more into it, we now just class ourselves just purely as tango dancers, because we are starting to look at things which happened before the golden or traditional age. It's the stuff like the chenyenge. Looking into, so on Monday we held a special class, which obviously thank you for announcing it on your radio show, which was our celebration of 5 years since we took over running the club, which we showed a video which is on YouTube about the black roots of Argentine tango and talking about that, and it all builds in together. And there's even arguments that with the sort of nuevo, I know there's no such thing as nuevo style or neo style because they're all continuation, there's no discrete levels, but if you go to the way that sort of people dance neo or sort of more modern styles of tango rather than the, let's call it the traditional salon stuff of the 40s, there's a lot more bend in the knees, and that's closer to what chenyenge was. So
that's right, yeah. But you say about the history and the linking, what we're doing now, and how it all comes really back from the roots. This has been my thing all along, is that there is no modern style of tango or old style of tango, because all the techniques do all the same things. We don't do anything different or whatever. It's just the way we, it's just the package we put around it. I was looking at a video a little while ago, and I assumed, looking at the video, that this was a piece of footage that had been made to look a bit old, but was filmed like 3 weeks ago, because it was high lifts, it was very ballroom style pirouettes and spins with great deep planeos and high raps and everything like this. And then I realized that actually this thing had been filmed in sort of like either the late 20s, early 30s, and all that they'd done was just restored the footage and speed adjusted it so that it looks right now. This was old, original, pre-Golden Age tango, and it looked more neo than some of the parkour tango specialists I've seen coming out of Buenos Aires at the moment, and some of the stuff they're doing. Their stuff looked more traditional. So this idea that we are doing something weird and hyper modern and odd with tango. It's just not the case. It's always been there right from the start.
Yes, it's how fins sort of develop, isn't it? And I think part of it is how much volume of that content is around. So the difficulty with Chenyenge is that nobody knows what it looks like because there's no film footage of it. There's a few still photos of it, and you were going on people's written accounts of what it looked like, or people in the sort of 50s and 60s trying to remember back to their youth in the early 1900s, and then passing that information on. And again, with tango, it was mainly danced by the lower classes, and the upper classes got hold of it. And just as this is how society works, middle and upper classes normally have better recording facilities to record their own history. So
yes, certainly before mobile phones with cameras, the only people with film cameras, as you say, were people with money. So
and it's even just writing things down, having time to write down, having the education to write stuff down is just real. It's what historians have main problems with. It's that argument that in a battle you only hear the winner's side because all the other people are dead. So you're never going to get their opinions on it. So it's really trying to derail it. So I think if anything is possible, there's always you can never. It's really difficult to find anything really new in dance. There's always going to be somebody who's tried it before. So yeah, that's something that I've always found interesting. So I think this probably leads on to tango synthesis and where that arose from, and you becoming a teacher.
Can I start earlier than that and start with modern jive? Because if I start at Tangosynthesis, then we're going to have to go backwards a step, and everyone's going to have to remember where they were, and I don't really need people to take notes at this point. So if I start way back when, long before I knew anything about it, my father was a fairly accomplished ballroom dancer, and he did lots of competitions and got lots of dancing medals and all this kind of stuff. I never saw him dance, never knew anything about that. I mean, he's still around. He talks about it rarely, but it doesn't make a big thing about it. But he, that idea of dancing kind of stuck with me, and I'd never tried. I'd never had a go at it. So, God, how long ago was it now? 10, 15 years ago? How old am I? It must have been nearly 15 years ago. Yeah. I decided, you know what? I'm going to go along to a dance class to prove I can't do it. But I've never done it. And I thought, well, I'm a scientist. I can't assume that I don't know how to do it until I've tried and proven I can't do it. So I went along to a dance class, and it was a modern jive, part of the Ciroc group, one of them. And I was right, I couldn't do it. But I couldn't do it because I didn't know how, not because I couldn't do it. So I thought, well, I need to at least experiment with this a little bit more and find out, once I know how, can I do it? And basically that ended up with me being hooked. Roll forward a number of years, and kind of, again, it's the scientific background, I suppose. I had to have occasional measures and metrics as to how well you're doing with something. So if you're learning a new skill, it's great to take a test every now and again. You know, when I was learning to sail and do stuff like that, I qualified all the way up. I qualified day skipper. Never used it, but it was just a useful measure of where I was with that, with learning. So I was looking around for some way of qualifying or assessing my skill level, if you like, in dance. There wasn't anything in modern jive. It doesn't exist. It's not a regulated dance. I didn't realize that at the time, but it is. So the only thing I could actually do was qualify as a teacher. I could do that. So I did this training. I set up all this stuff because you have to prepare all your notes and your training program and whatever. And I qualified as a teacher. That was handy because about 6 weeks after that, they announced the closure of all the venues that I was dancing at with the modern jive stuff for various reasons. I thought, okay, there's an opportunity here. Maybe what I could do is try and do my own thing. So I ended up then setting up Jivebeat, as it was, as a modern jive club. That was cool. Ran with that for a year or so. We never really saw the numbers. I think what I was trying to do, I was trying to be too nice. I think I was staying clear of everybody else and trying to set up in areas where there weren't existing clubs. I now know why there weren't existing clubs there. It's because there was no dancers there. and it turns out that geographically putting a pin right in between 3 major towns is not necessarily the best way to find people to come and dance. It doesn't work. Anyway, so it was one particularly quiet night down at Sevenoaks, and I had a half dozen people there. It was fun. And I said to the group, well, what do you want to do? Do you want to do some jive stuff, or do you want to try something else? I could show you a bit of tango, because I've been learning tango for a few years by this point. And then, oh, okay, let's try some tango. Not done any of that. So we did a bit of tango. I honestly can't remember what we did. It was probably awful, because I'd never thought about teaching tango before in my life at this point. I'd done some. I wasn't particularly great at it, but hey. And then the following week, I thought, well, that's not going to happen again. So I prepared another jive class. And I got back there and they said, oh, can we have some more tango? Okay, not prepared, not thought, but let's have a go at that. So then we started teaching tango. The following week, 2 people turned up and said, oh, I hear you're teaching tango. It's like, oh, great. So suddenly, hang on, I'm a tango class now. What's going on? Who told you we were teaching tango? I've tried to keep this quiet. So so that's how it sort of merged. And then for, I don't know, 6 months, 8 months, something like that, we tried to run it as a split modern jive tango class. But as it turns out, people who want to come to a tango class don't want to learn modern jive, and people who want to come to a modern jive class don't want to learn tango. And in that particular area, there were slightly more people who wanted to learn tango. So we thought, you know what, drop the modern jive. It's not really doing anything for us at the moment. It's fun, and I'm not going to lose the ability to do it, but we'll come back to that later. We never have, but come back to it later. Obviously, Jivebeat now was a daft name for a tango class, so we then started looking around for different things, and that was where Tangosynthesis was born. Basically, it's a riff on the word photosynthesis. The idea is that you can grow into tango, grow through tango, that tango is a little bit inspiring and this kind of thing. So that's where the name comes from. And since then, that has grown quite well. I kept the Jivebeat name, and we'll come back to that in a minute, because I'm using that for my radio station at the moment. But that's kind of how Tangosynthesis started.
So when you started, how did you teach the tango? Were you using sort of the modern jive style methods of? I'm assuming that it's the same sort of methods of like they do in the modern in the shop classes that we go to, whereas a stage up there and you sort of build a routine, or did you actually have to modify your teaching to more the?
Well, when I qualified as a teacher, I didn't qualify through Ciroc. I qualified through the La Rock Federation. And the La Rock Federation's approach to modern jive teaching is break it down, understand the movements, understand how it works, teach people how the movement works, and the steps will come out of that. Yes, you needed to have a program of steps, because modern jive is a steps-based dance. You learn the basket, the octopus, the whatever, the push turn, and you don't learn techniques in it, but everything is derived from techniques. So the program that I put together with that to get my teaching qualification there was very movement and kinesiology based, rather than step, step, follow, step, step, follow. So going into tango, I did use the same technique, but it won't be the same technique you're thinking of. Yeah. It wasn't, here's an ocho, follow me. It was, okay, how do we move people like that? Now, obviously, at this point, I had no experience of thinking about tango in that way, and most of the classes I'd been to were quite traditional, so they were very much the here's an ocho, follow me kind of approach. So I say traditional in teaching style, not traditional in music. At that point, I hadn't really heard traditional tango music. It was quite odd. I'd somehow managed to find the only half a dozen clubs in the area that were not using traditional tango music at all. So when I found the traditional tango scene, I was a bit surprised about that one. That was very different. But yeah, so my teaching approach was break it down into movements. How do we do this? How do we understand? What do you have to do to make this happen? So that was kind of where I started. I've refined it a lot since then, and it's very different now. As I have this theory that tango can be broken down into about 7 different things, and if you can do those 7 different things well, you can do all of tango. But I'll come on to that some other time, or just buy the book.
That'd be quite interesting, because we've broken down tango into 4 things, which we think that if
Oh, there you
can do.
go.
So those are the systems of walking, the ocho, the cross, and the cicada.
No, I don't go that route. Mine's all axis and position and whatever. It's very fine little details. So it's, about staying on your own axis, staying on your partner's axis, where your position, your angle is, leading, all that kind of thing. Anyway.
You said you're a scientist. What type of scientist are you? Or was you?
Yes, I'm an engineering sort of multidiscipline scientist. So I started life with the Ministry of Defence, working in scientific engineering departments, doing everything from physical measurements through to quality assurance, and that's where I started off doing all my quality assurance stuff. And I've never stopped doing quality assurance at any point.
Yeah, because I'm a physicist by profession, so so I was like, I hate the word axis. Because for me, an axis is one of 2 fins. It's either the fins on the side of a graph, or the point about which something can rotate, an invisible line about which something can rotate. So the idea is like,
and that's exactly what I mean in tango when I'm talking about axis. That's a definition.
And then you've got people then talk about shared axis. And a shared axis is when you have 2 data sets plotted on the same graph. There is no such thing as a shared axis. If you are sharing an axis, you are one system rotating around a common point. That is
agreed. That's kind of what I think of it, like a gravitational thing, where you've got 2 bodies rotating around a common center of gravity. So to me, a shared axis would be that, not necessarily concentric dancing. That would be
and also the idea of like Volcadas and Colgadas being off axis. Well, you're still on an axis. You're still making contact with the floor. You're still the bubble you're floating is at the bottom. The fact that your center of mass is off it is neither here nor there. But
I think sometimes you just have to bite the bullet and go with what people kind of understand the terms to mean. So I know what you're saying, and I agree with you completely. But sometimes you just have to sort of bite the bullet and think, all right, everyone else uses that term. Why don't I?
I don't know. I'm too stubborn to do that, I think. So So how did you find your tango class sort of grid? You said you were gone to about half a dozen other classes in the area. So did you start getting people from those classes sort of interacting with you, or did you?
Yes and no. I mean, when I first started dancing, I was working all over the country because, again, quality assurance stuff. So I was working all over the place. So the various tango classes that I'd been to, the various modern jive classes that I'd been to in the time, were all the way down to near you, sort of Cardiff, and a bit further along, somewhere near Cowbridge. I was staying in Llantwit Major for quite a long time, and so I was within range of a few places down there. I can't remember where the tango one was down there now, but there was a tango class I went to in that direction, so it wasn't yours. It was years ago. So yeah.
Well, it wouldn't have been Towie Tango if it was in Swansea, would it?
I don't think so. I don't know. It wasn't in Swansea. I never went into Swansea, just traffic reasons rather than anything else. But it was tiny. It was in a little village hall, and there was about 7 of us. It was not a large group.
Yeah.
But, Anyway, it might have been just short-lived. But yeah, so there, down in Southampton, Winchester, Basingstoke, and all the way along. So of course, most of the people that I'd met either moved up north or stayed down south or whatever. So when I went back to Kent, I didn't really know anyone in the tango area. So it was just a case of advertising locally, putting messages out on Facebook groups and forums and iudancing.com and all that kind of place, and finding people there. And honestly, it was mostly people who weren't going to other classes who started to come to us. So it wasn't that I sort of absorbed people from there. It was new people who hadn't danced tango before, or had stopped a while back because they couldn't learn, who played modern music and they liked the music rather than the traditional stuff. So yeah. I've kept contact with lots of local groups, and I kept going along. My opinion on teaching is that if you're going to be teaching something, you need to be learning it at the same time. So even if you end up going along to other people's beginners classes, I can guarantee you that even as a teacher, having been doing it for years, you go along to a beginners class, you will learn something. It's fascinating. So whenever I can, I always get down to particularly Brighton. I have a good relationship with Warren down in Brighton, the Tango boot camp and that lot down there, and so I go down there quite a lot. There's a few other places that I've gone to, and you pick up occasional private lessons when you can and when the timing works, just to keep learning. So keep connections.
So how do you sort of run your general classes? Is there a formula to them that you run to each week, or is it more sort of
formula?
Yeah, so like our classes, we always start off with the warm-up, which teaches you tango posture, embrace, and how to move like a tango dancer, and then we take one of those core concepts and we set and we explore it up, is it?
Yes and no. We always warm up because honestly, you can't get unless you've it's the first thing you do to people is say, "Show." There's going to be that sort of twang noise coming into the room and someone's muscle. Yeah, we always start off with a warm up and try and sort of sit into a sort of progressive thing. We started very much like the modern Jive format was a beginner's class followed by an improver's intermediate class followed by practice. But now it's a bit more freeform than that. We start somewhere with whatever I particularly want to work on that week or what they want to work on that week. And then we sort of develop it and just make it more and more complicated or add technique or whatever until a couple of hours later we say, right, okay, that's enough, kettle's on and dance, the music's on, the kettle's on, have at it kind of thing. So it's a bit freeform, but it does have a sort of progression. You turn up, we start with the easy stuff, and then it gets harder and harder and harder. The idea being is that it gives people the opportunity to start something easy, and then easy. It's tango. There is no easy, but start something easier, and then they can sort of bail out and just practice that bit for the rest of the evening when they get to the point where they've reached the level of their their skill or what they want to do or whatever. In practice, nobody does that. They all just keep trying until they get to the end, which I'm fine with. So as long as you keep an eye on them and make sure they're not going to hurt themselves or hurt anyone else, then I've got no problem with people trying things that are a little bit above their level at the moment. I don't do any backflips or lifts or anything like that in classes like that because it's just too much risk. So you try things which are as safe as tango ever gets. I think tango is probably one of the safest dances out there because you never really leap around at all. So yeah.
What type of music do you tend to play then?
Well, a lot of electro nuevos, so the classic bands that everyone knows, sort of Tanghetto, Otras Eras, Narco Tango, that kind of stuff. So I play a lot of that, but also I play a lot of what I would call modern chart, which may well just go to show how little in touch with modern chart I actually am, because it's probably not modern chart at all. But a lot of there's this sort of category of music which people call modern blues. So it's got that sort of slow R&B kind of rolling sort of feel to it. When they talk about modern blues, they're talking about modern blues dancing. But the weird thing about it, of course, is that people who do modern blues dancing don't call it modern blues. They call it blues. So because there is no modern blues, we're back to the Neotango, traditional tango kind of thing. It's happening in blues as well, that there is no really a modern blues kind of approach. It's just we're doing it to more modern music than the old guitar bands. So basically anything that's fairly slow, anything that's got an interesting rhythm. If you want to map it onto sort of traditional tango rhythms and stuff like that, anything in the normal tango rhythm structure is pretty easy to find. 2/4/4/4, various emphasized measures, slow bits, fast bits. You can find that anywhere. That's no problem. The sort of building power of sort of atomic profit kind of stuff, so you end up with a sort of very quiet, sort of almost ephemeral kind of sounds building to crescendos of explosions at the end, followed by a very nice quiet run out. They're great for tango because you can sort of warm up into it and you can build, and then that's it. Jazz is great because it's got a little bit of a messing around with the rhythm. Blues, solid blues, traditional blues, great for tango. Milonga, a little bit harder because the structure is weird. And yes, you can play sort of fast stuff, but I actually find that it doesn't work very well necessarily for milonga unless it was actually written for milonga. There's all sorts of complicated musical reasons why that is, but I'm not going to go into them right now. But what I find is that we end up dancing something which I've sort of, for want of a better word, called tango longa. It sort of sits between tango rhythm and milonga rhythm, so you can do lots of milonga sections, but then in order to get back in line with the music you need to do a couple of slow bits, because otherwise it's like watching a video that's slowly drifting out of sync. You're fighting it, so you need to do a bit of milonga rhythm and then slow bit, and then a bit of milonga rhythm and then a slow bit. Vowels is a pain in the neck because, as you know, traditional tango vowels is in 4/4 time, which is utterly insane, of course, because a waltz should be in 3/4 time. So whereas a waltz would be 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3, your traditional tango vowels, a lot of them are 1 2 3 pause, 1 2 3 pause, 1 2 3 pause, and the pause is still a beat. So if you're trying to find modern music that's written in the traditional tango vowels kind of approach of this 1 2 3 pause thing, it's not happening. It isn't there. So we use traditional vowels tracks to practice vowels to, some traditional and electro nuevo milonga tracks and to practice milonga to, and basically anything that we like to practice tango to, and then, as I say, the tango longa sort of hybrid bit. We'll just find stuff with fast beats.
Yeah, it's interesting you say about like trying to find sort of modern music, or alternative music that you can dance milonga and vals to. So when I look at my sort of music collection, the amount of stuff that you can dance tango to is huge.
Vals, all of it, really.
Yeah. Vals is not too. I've never found that too far. You can just go for sort of like the French style valses type things.
If you're okay with 3/4 time, then yes, then that's okay. And some traditional tango was in 3/4. If you're okay with that, and it's the 4/4 with a fake bit. That's the
but milonga, I had this problem. We every couple of months we do our Create Milonga, which has to be online now, and that milonga, we've tried to really blur the edges between what a traditional milonga is and what people would call a neo milonga, just because we want to try and get everybody dancing together. So we have tandas in it, so the tandas of 3 songs, and then we alternate them, going a traditional tanda followed by what we call a nuevo tanda, which would be things like electro tango, maybe something like Ocho Series, maybe more modern recordings of traditional tango songs, or modern sort of tangoish bands doing something. So something that you could real crossover type stuff. And then we have alternative, which can be anything, which, Pink Floyd, Bach, James Harvest, if you're into prog or acoustic covers. It's the type of stuff I would play on Neotango TV. And then we also alternate your tandas of, we have a tanda of tango, a tanda of milonga, another tanda of tango, and then a tango of vals, and then a tanda of blues. So that cycles throughout the night. But it came to a point where we had a alternative milonga tanda. So I started off with Serha's Mia Paso, which could have technically classed in the nuevo one because it's so ingrained in sort of tango culture now. And then I got really stuck because I was looking for my music and go, well, what else have I got which is sort of milonga? And I ended up thinking of that song that I think it was Coldplay and the Chainsmokers did, Adventure of a Lifetime or something like that.
Oh yes,
it just had sort of that sort of bouncy sort of rhythm to it, which you could sort of do milonga steps. And for some reason, my choices was to play Marillion's Easter, which
Oh, that would work. Okay.
well, it starts off in with Valve timing. It's in the time of 6, so you can start doing Valves to that, and then about 2 minutes before the end is a 7-minute long song. It changes abruptly to 7/4, and it has this sort of skipping bump, but the vocals are sort of melongery. I thought, well, let's give that to people. And you saw everybody just. So we have a big projector. We were watching everybody dance to this, and suddenly just everybody just stops and just go, "What is this?"
Reminds me of an event where the DJ was, I think it was a Modern Jive event, and he put on something by King Crimson that started perfectly, and then sort of dropped into this weird 13/8 time that it was just horrible, and everybody almost fell over. It was very weird because everyone's trying to hold the beat and
I went to see King Crimson about a year and a half ago in Cardiff, and yeah, they had 3 drummers on there, and
yes,
it's like I like the stuff from the 60s and 70s, like Court of the Crimson King and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
And but there's like they sort of went in the 80s into like sort of jazzy sort of really experimental sort of, it's high quality musicianship because you get like the drummers playing in 3/8, no matter which drummer it is, but then sort of the guitarist is playing in a time of 7, the bassist is something which you can't, I couldn't do a workout from counting along to it.
Yeah, exactly.
So I was like, I wouldn't say it sounded great, but it's from a musician's point of view, it is.
Well, this is the thing. Yeah, a lot of that kind of jazzy stuff. It's I say it's an acquired taste. It's a technical taste. If you like the sort of technical sound of the music and want to just sort of settle into that, it's great. But yeah, hard to dance to.
Yeah. And the other thing I find really difficult with music is I quite like my progressive rock, as you probably realised from this conversation so far. Like there's songs in there which I'd really like to dance to. Unfortunately, they're 20 minutes long, even like the 7-minute long ones. Like, and the same thing happens with things like symphonic metal, like Nightwish as well. I like.
Yes.
I think, and I've been listening to them a lot recently just because of you started playing their version of The Heart Seeks Pleasure on your radio show.
Yeah.
And so that's sort of
that works as a Vowels. That's a nice Vowels actually. Yeah. Just don't crescendo too early at the end and end up sort of in a hold because you think that last chord is great, and then you stop and you're holding position. You realise you've got another 17 bars of really quiet little bits playing out at the end. Yeah, good one to watch out for that.
I think that's actually sort of brought us onto your radio show that you're now running.
Yes, yeah.
So this is under the jivebeat.dance.
That's it. Yep. Well, like I said, I kind of ended up with this spare brand of Jivebeat because we weren't teaching modern Jive anymore. The website was hanging around for a while, and I didn't really know what to do with it. And then all this current mayhem started, and because of logistics, I don't really have any realistic way of doing online video live classes here. Space is all wrong, the layout's wrong, my dance partner lives 15 miles away, this kind of stuff. So it was all a bit of a challenge. So I was thinking, how do I keep people connected with what we're doing and keep people interested in dance? One of the other things I do is that I do sound engineering for events, festivals, tango events, that kind of thing. So if you've been to any of the big tango festivals or local big fairs around northwest Kent, you may well have seen me sitting behind a sound desk or stacking speakers up by a stage or doing all this kind of stuff. So I've got an immense amount of sound kit lying around. And I thought, well, one of the things that I could do is I can still DJ, I can still do that. So why don't I put together a radio station? Fiddled around with some different bits of technology and tried a few things out. Tried one out that had a maximum of 5 listeners, and you could do that kind of thing just to see whether it worked, and then expanded up to where I am now. And basically, it was just as a way of keeping people interested in what's going on with the dance world. Now, when I started it, I kind of assumed that my audience would be some of the people who came along to my normal classes some of the time. So I was expecting 2 or 3 people to be listening to it some nights and 5 or 6 other nights and whatever, to just like that. And then I found that I could do a catch-up thing as well. So I started recording the shows and putting them out on catch-up. Fiddle around with the music license a bit so I could get the get all that sorted out, and that was okay. And then I don't know, it was just before Christmas, I suppose. I was just sort of looking through the connections and how many people have been listening and whatever, and found that whilst the live shows were sort of rumbling along at a nice, interesting level, it's worth doing them live. It's good. The catch-up was insane. And suddenly it's extremely popular. So I reformatted it a little bit so that it's now, rather than being one show in the morning and one show in the evening and a midday one and a couple of days off, so nobody knew when the shows were and people were always complaining that they were missing them. It's now every night, 10:30 through to midnight, every night, 7 nights a week. The Sunday one is a repeat of the Saturday one, so I literally just replay it. And suddenly realized it was actually bizarrely popular now. So it's become a thing. And of course, now the challenge is, how do I keep this going once I actually start doing dance classes again? Because obviously, I'm starting the show half an hour before I would finish teaching. So I need to come up with a plan for this, because the teaching evenings, we book the whole for 3 hours. So we have an hour and a half, 2 hours of teaching, and then people dance for the rest of it. So I'm still packing up kit at 11 o'clock at night, usually, and with the radio show I've been on air for half an hour by then. So I need to come up with a plan as to how to continue it when things go back to sanity. But yeah, it's all been good fun.
We sometimes listen at night. Obviously you start at 10:30. Is it every night, or is it Monday?
Yeah, it's every night.
Every night. Yeah, so we before we used to sometimes listen into the morning show as well when Alison was doing her work. Now she listens to you on catch up while working in the morning. So we catch up there. So you had the Friday night is the dance show, which
well, let's go through the week. So Monday night I do a midnight chill show, which is basically anything a bit chilled and a bit calm. So people used to like the chilled out evening shows. So I've kept that format for a couple of them. So Monday night is a midnight chill. That is slow blues, slow rock. I pay no attention to its danceability. It's just whether I like the track. Tuesday night, it's kind of a show with no name, and it's my slot for doing anything that comes to mind. So I mean, last week I think I just did back-to-back Latin salsa type tracks, and the week before it was back-to-back modern jive tracks. The week before that it was some tracks that I'd found because I've recently dug an old turntable out of the loft, and so I've got a load of stuff on vinyl which I've never played on the show because I don't have any technical way of playing vinyl on the show. I don't really want one. It's a pain in the neck. So I started transferring stuff from vinyl so I can play some of the older things. So a lot of Stevie Nicks, Pink Floyd, that kind of thing that I haven't played for ages. Last night I actually did a whole thing because so many people, like you said at the start, so many people have been asking me what Neotango is that I did a whole thing on what is Neotango last night. So that was that. Wednesday night is the retro zone, because one thing that people did comment on from the old format of the shows was they loved the fact that I played a lot of old big band stuff and older music. So since Christmas, I've just done a Wednesday night hour and a half of big band music. At some point, I'll step out of big band music, but I hadn't realized how much big band music I actually have in my collection. So an hour and a half every Wednesday since Christmas, and I think I'm only halfway through. It's I've got a lot of big band music. So and then Thursday night, another midnight chill. Friday night is the big announcement one. That's the dance show. So I get anyone who wants to announce anything that they're doing in the dance world, drop me a line, studio@jivebeat.dance. That's my email address. There's no .com on the end of that. I get people saying it doesn't work, and they've been sending to .dance.com. That's not a thing. Studio@jivebeat.dance will get me, and you can. I'll tell people about what you're doing. So yeah, that's Friday nights, and then Saturday night. Basically, it's the music that I would play if I was doing a normal milonga. So it's like our virtual milonga kind of thing, only shorter because it's only an hour and a half, not a normal 3-hour milonga event. So different show every week, every night, and apart from Sundays, which is just a repeat of Saturdays. So.
Yeah. So you even after lockdown drops, you're still hoping to continue with all the shows then?
I'm hoping to, if I can work out how. As I say, it's just a matter of timing and logistics. And yeah, I'd like to do it. One thing I would very much like to do, if I can work out how to get the music license sorted out without insane amounts of costs, is to be able to include things like live streaming in the milonga events. So, audio only, but just a way of getting people interested. So I'm still exploring ideas on that. I mean, it does, of course, depend on what actually happens when lockdown lifts and we can finally start teaching again. What I don't know is how many of the people that I had in the classes before are actually going to come back. I think we talked about this before, and when this interview was the other way around, is what format of the class is going to be. It might be completely different. We might start off for the first few months doing an hour and a half instead of the normal 3 hours. It might be on different days in different places. So who knows? So I'm kind of leaving that decision until I have to make it, rather than deciding now.
Going back to the radio show, do you know roughly what sort of audience you're getting? Is it normally just dancers? Is it a range of people from outside dance coming in?
All the people that talk to me about it are dancers. However, that does not add up to our audience figures. Our audience figures are a lot higher. Now, I haven't got any kind of audience profiling or tracking or anything like that turned on. It's all I know is how many people and what country they're in. That's it. I need that for the license. But but yeah, it's I don't know. The ones who talk to me are all dancers, but I don't know if that's across the board.
Yes, as when we listened on Friday, so you recognise from the shout-outs, you recognise the different groups from around the UK. So things like Paisley Tango. We did the interview with Dan a couple of weeks ago, so the previous episodes to this. And we'd been going to a couple of their sort of Saturday evening milongas and spot. So yeah, it's always interesting to find out who actually is listening to stuff. There's all that stuff. Lockdown has been an opportunity. So for us, we've mainly been concentrating on the teaching side of things because we've got the facilities and the space to be able to do that. And also the members of our class have the opportunity, have the ability to have space in their houses to dance, which has been lovely. So just looking at what's out there at the moment to be able to go to different events on the same day. So a couple of weeks ago, we went to the Paisley Tango Milonga, which is 7 till 8. And then after that, we went to the Papa Caliente in Reading. And then after that, we listened to some of your Jive shows. Like, there's no other time where you could go to that variety of events on
That's it. Scotland, Reading, and Kent all in one evening.
Yeah. And it's the same with the classes as well. There's opportunities out there to teach. So it's so we are getting now people from Germany coming to our regular Monday class. We've got a couple down in Cornwall, a couple up in Ludlow, Oxfordshire, obviously some people from Wales. And there's actually quite a nice thing to be able to just see people weekly and just interact on a totally different way. So it's, I suppose, we've been having some sort of. You've got the problem of how you're going to continue the radio shows with teaching after. We're trying to work out how to also stay online after. So,
the online stuff. I was wondering about that. Actually, that might be something we would start exploring, because it wouldn't take much to add in all my stuff's portable, so it's really easy to shift. So it wouldn't take much to actually easily shift a 2-camera live streaming rig to a dance class venue. So we could actually do a sort of hybrid kind of thing, as long as we shuffled it around a bit. So where we would normally stand in the middle of the circle and teach from the middle of the circle, as long as we stood at an end, so we weren't transmitting the people who were, they're coming along to the class and didn't really want to be on camera, we could actually live stream our classes as well as teaching in person at the same time. So we're sort of exploring that kind of option as well.
Yeah, that's what we're thinking as well.
It's easy enough to build a rig that you could just open the lid and set it up and it's all good to go. So yeah.
Yeah, and also cameras are so cheap now. So the camera that I'm filming myself on here is was it a 90 quid video camera off Amazon. Comes with an external powered mic on it. It shoots in 4K. Never try editing video in 4K. It takes absolutely ages to render. And we've also got the cycling tango dancers video. We've got little cameras mounted to the bike with the same with the GoPros, and they were about 30 or 40 quid each. And again, we'll shoot in 4K. And you just set up a couple of those. So we've recently started teaching our Monday evening classes with 2 different camera angles. So the forward camera and a side camera, so you can see. Yep, those are the type of things.
Little things like those, yeah.
And brilliant. So we want to try and the classes that we used to teach. One of them was in the university, so you get really good internet connection there to be able to stream from. The Monday evening class, because it's normally quite dark, and also the internet is sort of a public Wi-Fi thing, isn't great for streaming over, but you can still record it and stick it up for later if you wanted to. But we were also thinking of doing was do it our Create Malonga, which is on the Friday evening, first Friday of every other month. We could still stream that over Zoom. But also, what it gives us.
Well, I was thinking with that one, but you're saying about the. I was saying just now about the, making sure that people are on camera if they want to be on camera and not if not. If you're doing a whole Malonga, you could easily put a sort of couple of signs up and say, anyone that side, if you dance this side of this line, you may be on camera. If you dance this side of this line, then you may not. It's up to you. Choose to dance where you like. So you could easily sort of filter it like that.
Yeah, or you just have a camera at such a wide angle you can't distinguish people anyway.
Yeah, people still complaining.
Yeah, people still complain. But also, what I was thinking, that also gives you the opportunity to do sort of linked events with other people. So if you had a church hall with a decent internet connection, you could join in from there and then share the DJ and back and forth, or even do multiple things. And you can create. It's opening up an opportunity.
I've also been playing around with projection mapping technology as well since we've started all this. So you could do that whole. Have you done the Cisco meeting room thing where they have the wraparound TV screen? So half your desk is in one building and the other half your desk is in another building.
No.
And when it turns, when you go into the meeting, it genuinely looks like the room is now twice as long as it was. You could do something like that with video mapping as well. That if you set up the projectors behind the DJ, you could have it so that behind the DJ you can see the other hall that they're working, and so you dance there and you're dancing to the same tracks. That would work really nicely. Technology's there, we can use it.
Yeah, so the venue we use for the Create Malonga is the Swansea University again, and it's a place called the Create Studio. It's a weird final floor, and it's like a sort of circular space with some sort of tiered seating boxes around the outside, and then a little balcony thing, but it's got the projector screen up there, so you could easily see another venue quite easily, because they sometimes use that because that building also houses a theatre. There you go, using my words. So they sometimes stream what's going on in the theatre outside into this sort of space. So yeah, it's opening up new ideas. I'm assuming those who are heavily into the traditional side of things, and something that's really annoyed me recently is people sort of trying to say that online tango classes aren't tango, or you're not learning, and online events aren't proper tango, and like,
I'm a bit really suspicious that's from people who don't know how to use the cameras.
Yeah, I think it comes down to there's like you got like some teachers going, it goes against our philosophy of teaching because it's against traditional tango. Or they wouldn't have done this in the golden era. You play MP3s. It's like
yes, they wouldn't have done this in the golden era. No, because they didn't have video walls and high-speed internet back then. That's the only reason.
Yeah. So,
I am firmly of the opinion that the I don't want to use the word restrictions because that's not what I mean, but the kind of the boundaries, that's a better word, the boundaries of traditional tango are only the boundaries of traditional tango because that's what was available at the time and that's what the culture of the time accepted. I don't think that there's any need to restrict it artificially. It's had tango progressed and evolved in a nice linear way, anything would have happened.
I'd argue against that. I think the actual restrictions that people put on traditional tangos are people's own preferences and what they think those boundaries were. So,
this is the thing, because there was this big gap when, there was two things going on. Because again, I haven't been to Argentina for reasons, but I've talked to a lot of people down there, and there's an awful lot of neo and very, very modern events happening down there at the moment. In fact, I'll say at the moment, in a normal at the moment, in some areas there is far more what we would think of as neo than there is traditional.
Yeah.
And the traditional in those areas is largely there for the tourists.
Yeah.
And my suspicion is that what happened was that when tango was brought over to Europe, there was this let's present it as something exotic by presenting it in this kind of cultural environment and bringing a bit of the culture with it. And so the dances, the milongas, everything was set up to look like the milongas that people had seen down in South America. That has now become known as traditional tango, whereas tango has continued to evolve quite happily and has progressed on and done all its thing. But it's almost this external view that's caused it to get sort of caught into this sort of, I don't know, this struggle. Get my head around it yet. It's that's book is taking a little while to write because that's a complicated chapter that I'm trying to do a fair bit of historical research to work out.
Yeah.
But it does seem to be linked to the export of tango, if you like.
Yeah, it seems to be. It's like the ideas of like the Cabeceo, and I think that's got a social implication to it because of what men talking to single women in that time and being turned down by single women and what that did to social status. So that did happen, but I'm assuming there must be other milongas where, especially in sort of more the lower classes, where they would just offer the hand and dance. There's also a book where
I must admit, you mentioned the Cabeceo. That's an interesting because I personally, and this is something I'm looking at a lot at the moment. I am of the opinion that the Cabeceo really has met its end of time, if you like, and it's time it went. Apart from anything else, because I do not believe that the Cabeceo is compatible with a decent inclusivity and diversity policy. My dance partner is autistic. She's only been recently diagnosed as that. She's mildly autistic, but one of the things she cannot do is maintain eye contact. The other thing she cannot do is reliably recognize facial expressions. She loves dancing. She'll dance with anybody. If they come up to her and say, "Would you like to dance?" and they're not weird, then she will dance with them. That's no problem. But if they start wiggling eyebrows at her from the other side of the room as the way to invite her to dance, she'll never notice, and if she does notice, she won't know what it means. And if she knows what it means, she'll assume it's for the person next to her because they can't possibly be talking to her. So if she goes to a dance where everybody is cabaceoing, she basically goes to a sit. She doesn't go to a dance. She just literally goes there to sit. And this is a big problem. And I know other people who have gone along to milongas and they've said, nobody came up to me and asked me to dance. I'm never going back there again. And I'm thinking, I bet they did. But I bet what they were doing was waving and wiggling eyebrows from the other side of the room. Nobody would have come up to him and said, "Would you like to dance?" So I think the Cabeceo is time has come. It needs to go.
Yeah, the same thing I've had. Personally, I'm not that great at asking people to dance. Does I tend to just sit down and I'll listen to music, go, oh, quite like this. I'm just listening to the music, watching the band or whatever, or watching people dance. I'm not looking to see what's going on around who wants to dance around the floor. But there's also the idea of if you're visually impaired, it doesn't really work.
No, exactly. Yeah.
So
I mean, we've had that comment as well. I mean, Natalie, as I say, Natalie, my dance partner, she, her issue is she wears contacts and everything, so that's no problem for the dancing. But we've had other people who they don't like wearing the glasses when you're dancing, because obviously if your face is squished against someone, you know, you don't want to have your glasses on. So you know, they'll take them off in preparation, but then they can't see the cabeceo. They don't know who's talking to them, whatever. So yeah, it's a big problem.
Yeah, that's what.
But yeah, talk to Natalie if you want to find out her views on why the cabeceo is bad. Talk to Natalie. She will.
And also, I think just trying to get women to ask men to dance, I think, is another big part of tango. Like, just it's the equal opportunities, it's the inclusivity thing, and it's all should be there. And also, let's go for like the Neotango events. Quite often, those are in the dark with big video projections. You can't see it. Even if somebody comes up, even if somebody comes up and offers you to dance, you end up going yes, and you just stand up. Well, just agree to dance with a bloke. Right? That's you can't tell anything what's going on. So it's I think there's fins and tangos has to move on. That's one thing that I'm worried about with the neo-tango scene, is whether people, whether it's going to shoehorn itself into like these sort of events, sort of like what's happened to traditional tango, where you have to have fins in certain layouts. There has to be video projections. It has to be the dark, moody room or whatever. So it has to have like certain styles.
I think there's I think there's enough scope, enough variety in Neo that it's not all video projections and lights off. I mean, don't get me wrong, I like video projections and lights off, but I equally like outdoors. You know, just pull with a speaker, like any version of tango, really. I mean, as I say, me and Natalie, with that's our approach to it. We will tango anywhere. You know, we will encourage people to dance in village halls or in concert halls, in darkened rooms, in lightened rooms, in the middle of IKEA. You know, we'll dance anywhere. So,
I think it's just that sort of like almost what other people perceive as it, which is the problem. I think a couple of years ago, I wrote a couple of blogs on this. One was people's attitude to traditional music damaging their tango, and was people's attitude to nuevo / neo tango damaging it. So if you assume that something is going to be at the far ends of those two spectrums, then you're never going to get that crossover. So I think that's
our approach with Neo. Is we've always said that it is completely inclusive, and that anything we do is totally welcoming and accepting and including of old traditional style dancing, new neo style dancing, old music, new music, everything in between. All we do is we sort of take the regulations off, if you like. So
but then again, I've been to sort of traditional events which have exactly the same philosophy, and yet they're not, because they have the freedom. They're saying, well, you don't have to do the cabeceo. They might still be playing in tandas, but well, if you don't want to dance all free, fine. Like even things like the
I'd count those as Neo.
So it's a bizarre thing. Like I think there's time that there has to be a time sometime where everything is just going to come under just tango, and that is.
I hope so.
Yeah. So anyway, I think we're probably coming to a natural conclusion to this talk. Is there anything that you want to cover before we finish?
Let's have a think. What have we missed? You can edit out my weird thinking, can't you, at this point?
Probably could, but I will not.
I mean, what I would say is that if anyone who's watching this video who is already a tango dancer and who is who's familiar with all the groups around and has gone to all of them, then brilliant. This is fantastic. Keep going to as many different groups. Keep watching as many different online groups as you can. And that's the beauty of this period. Like Chris just said, you know, it's you can be in Scotland at 7 o'clock and in Reading at 8 o'clock and in Kent at 10 o'clock. You know, so it's you can try different things. Use this time to expand your horizons, and when things go back to normal again, then go to as many different groups as you can, to pick up different teaching styles, listen to different teachers, and never stop learning. Because there's the amount of people I've met along this, and you dance with them, and you can always tell it's going great when afterwards you say, "Oh, where do you learn?" Because you're thinking, "Do you learn?" Sometimes, you know, people need to keep learning, keep practicing, and keep getting the bad habits sorted out. And if you're watching this video and you are new to tango, or thinking about tango, or wondering what the hell tango is, but somebody sent you this link, then first of all, don't think that tango is going to be a dance that you're going to be able to dance brilliantly in 6 weeks like modern jive. It takes a bit more effort than that, but it is seriously rewarding when you do. And it will, the scope for dance, for expression, and for just generally having fun is so much in tango that and I think this is so often missed when people talk about it, that they talk about the style and the technique and the history and the whatever, but nobody actually talks about how much fun it is. I mean, this is why Natalie and I sort of have spent so much of our time focusing on tango and not really so much on modern jive anymore, is because we believe that is the side of it that has the most creative expression, the most fun, the most diversity, the most everything, and it is truly brilliant to be involved in. So find yourself a class. I think if you're new to tango and you've watched this video, you will now know that there are different types of class. You will have seen that there are traditional ones that have a lot of rules. There are traditional ones that don't have so many rules. There are crazy neo ones like me who do everything almost because it's breaking the rules. So find one that you like. So if you go to the first tango class and you think that was a bit odd, try again, but try a different class, because there will be something you like. The tango it's got something for everyone, really has.
Yeah, and I'd also add to that, even if you do find one you like, if you'd like discarded one because you didn't like, and then you go to one after some time, go back to the one you discarded and see how things have progressed.
Yeah. You might have expanded or changed the way you think. They might have changed the way they teach or the way they run there. So keep looking all the time.
Yeah. So I'll just probably say thank you to everybody who's watched this. You'll find down below links to Tangosynthesis and Jivebeat, including the radio station, and also on both Facebook and websites and any other social media. So please check those out, to subscribe and like and whatever else you can do to support those. I suppose they're companies or groups. You also find ones down there for find the ones for Urban Tango Nights as well. And if you've liked this video, please subscribe to the video. And I think the only thing left to do now is say thank you, Graham, for joining me today.
And thank you for having me.